Last up at tonight's Flash Fiction Armagh event is Peter Hollywood. He is Newry born but lives in Belfast. He apologises in advance, as anyone who has read his books will know he's not good with words, and indeed suffers delusions of grammar. Therefore, he craves your forbearance and warns that any heckles will be taken down and used in a future work of fiction. Tonight, Peter is reading After the Conflict. Peter Hollywood.
Thank you very much. I was talking to Malachy earlier on. I said to him that being here tonight was special for me because my dad had played county football for Armagh in the 40s and 50s, and I thank Biddy and Raymond for allowing me to do this tonight. So, also, Mr. Intermission is a brilliant title for a short story, and I'm claiming it. All right, so it's great. This is After the Conflict. After the conflict, huge mechanical cranes suddenly overarched the city centre skyline and skips appeared in the suburbs. Property prices soared after the conflict and most people stopped moving house. Instead, they renovated. There were loft conversions and kitchen extensions. Front gardens were often slabbed over, gravelled or interred in tarmacadam to make secure parking space for one or both cars. There were hagglings and horse tradings with architects and surveyors, negotiations with planning services, tenders sought from small construction companies whose little dirty vans were seen buzzing about everywhere. Loans arranged, remortgagings. Lawyers and barristers managed to move house. Elsewhere, there were rows over boundary lines and deeds produced from nowhere, cans of white spray Xing driveways and walls with what looked like badly applied band-aids. After the conflict, you could hardly get a plumber or plasterer for love or money. Some brave souls had a go at themselves. In the suburbs, there were Kangos and Bobcats, and long lorries loaded with red brick and breeze blocks, rosemary tiles or Bangor blues, sets and cobbles, cedar, heather, charcoal, bracken, old court flags or textured and riven flags, autumn brown, sage green, Sahara. There was traffic congestion in small avenues and closes, courts and cul-de-sacs. Daylight burst down Bible-like after the conflict through apertures in the roofs made for the insertion of Velux skylights, and dark and dust scurried off on 4 legs and 8 for cover under the suddenly exposed joists, purlins and rafters. Wasp nests were detonated, swallows and swifts and bats put to flight. Avenues clanged with the sound of industry. Little corner shops did a brief boon trade in cigarettes and sandwiches, high-energy drinks, newspapers, Mars bars. Urban foxes poked their noses into suddenly overloaded yellow skips. Dog walkers strolled past and peered inquisitively into the rash of miniature building sites, taking notes, inspecting, making comparisons, and simply satisfying their own curiosity. On dry, windy days, there were mini sandstorms and tarpaulins flapped and slapped and loudly. Plastic carry-out coffee cups and torn plastic sheets, fangs of white polystyrene got ensnared in people's hedges, and neighbours complained about the mess the street was in. People peered out through double glazing, conservatories, orangeries. All the time downtown, the construction continued apace. Old buildings that had survived the conflict got makeovers and facelifts or were torn down and demolished, making way for the new. CCTV sniffed the air. Meanwhile, a smarter class of helicopter began to buzz the skies above us, lighter and brightly bubbled and often with the corporate logo emblazoned on the fuselage. Police cars too became candied and colourful. Helmets and flap jackets were mostly shed. Talk of betrayal began to fade from beer-soaked, heated barroom debate replaced instead with words such as amnesty and reconciliation, the obfuscating fog of cigarette smoke lifted too with that ban. According to some critics, however, it was not cool to write about the conflict anymore, preferring that authors did not dwell over much on the Troubles monarchy. So, from Canada and America came ice hockey players, plasterers and plumbers from Eastern Europe, furniture from Sweden. Then, also from America, subprime mortgages became a topic of vexed conversation, along with the associated fear of a credit crunch, so that property prices took a tumble and people continued to mostly stop moving house. In floodplains, wise residents moved sockets higher up the walls and demanded more regular purgation of drains. Many retained sodden sandbags just in case. There was talk of climate change. However, out in the countryside, someone was setting age-old orange hulls alight, and hoax devices were being found tethered to railings around rural Gaelic playing fields. It appeared dark men were still meeting in late places. Yet the people are resilient. It is after the conflict now, and they renovate and home improve, extend, redecorate, and all the time appreciate the city and its transformations. But every so often, in the midst of this flurry of activity, some might stop and look around them. Watch them. Periodically they will pause and for a moment hesitate as if unsure of this normality. Might be the hawk shadow of a low-cost airplane passing overhead, or the hollow boom of an empty skip being clumsily dumped to the ground. It might simply be the lack of noise, silence. Whatever, they will look around, then when reassured, they'll proceed about their business. Thank you.